When you begin the journey of evaluating gaming performance, it is easy to fall into the trap of hyper-focusing on a single game. If you only plan to play one title for the next 5 years, then a single benchmark might suffice as your guiding light. However, the reality of the digital age is one of constant movement, where our tastes and our libraries are always expanding. A processor that dominates in a tactical shooter might struggle in a sprawling, open-world epic that demands heavy simulation. To find the true value of a CPU, one must look at a wide spectrum of data, observing how the silicon handles different engines and different challenges. This is why professional testers often isolate the CPU by testing at a resolution of 1080p, paired with the most powerful graphics card available. Testing at lower resolutions might seem counterintuitive when you own a 4K monitor, but it is the only way to reveal the CPU's true limitations. By removing the bottleneck of the graphics card, we force the processor to show its maximum potential, revealing the gaps that would otherwise be hidden. It is also vital to cross-reference multiple sources, because no single chart can tell the whole story of a piece of hardware. Different testers use different memory speeds, different cooling environments, and different background software, all of which can skew the results. To truly understand the power you are buying, you must be a detective, looking for the common threads of performance across various environments. Only then can you see the clear picture of what a processor will offer you over the course of 3 or 4 years. Clock speed is perhaps the most misunderstood metric in the history of computing, often used as a blunt instrument by marketing departments. In the early 2010s, we were taught that a higher gigahertz number was the ultimate goal of any performance seeker. It is true that a higher frequency allows a core to complete more cycles per second, which directly impacts the responsiveness of your system and those vital 1% lows. But clock speed is an empty promise if the architecture of the processor is inefficient or outdated. This is where the concept of instructions per clock, or IPC, becomes the true measure of a processor's intelligence. A modern CPU running at 4 GHz will almost always outperform an older model running at 5 GHz, because it does more work with every single tick of the clock. Think of clock speed as the speed at which a person is running, while IPC is the length of their stride. A person taking massive, powerful steps will cover more ground than someone whose feet are moving fast but covering no distance. This is why comparing clock speeds only makes sense when you are looking at processors from the same generation and the same architectural family. When you step outside of those bounds, the numbers on the box become almost irrelevant compared to the actual work being done. As we move into the year 2025, we see that the efficiency of the stride is becoming far more important than the raw speed of the movement. Choosing a processor based on frequency alone is like choosing a car based on the numbers on the speedometer, rather than the horsepower of the engine. The conversation around core and thread counts has shifted dramatically over the last decade, moving from luxury to necessity. In the year 2010, a dual-core processor was often enough for most tasks, but those days are long forgotten in the wake of modern software demands. Today, the baseline for a competent gaming machine is 6 cores and 12 threads, providing a foundation for both the game and the operating system. Moving from a quad-core system to a 6-core system is often the single most noticeable upgrade a gamer can make for their system's stability. It eliminates the micro-stuttering that occurs when the CPU is forced to juggle the game's logic with background tasks like Discord or a web browser. While moving to 8 cores can provide a further safety net, especially for those who wish to record their gameplay, the benefits begin to diminish after that point. For the vast majority of players, the 6-core or 8-core processor represents the perfect intersection of price and performance, often called the sweet spot. If you invest in a 16-core monster but only use your computer for gaming, you are paying for power that will sit idle while you play. Those extra cores are like having a massive kitchen staff with only one chef actually cooking the meal. The others are just standing around, taking up space and consuming energy. Unless you are a professional video editor or someone who runs heavy simulations while gaming, your money is better spent elsewhere. The goal is to build a balanced machine where every component is utilized to its fullest, rather than over-investing in one area while others suffer. It is about the harmony of the parts, not just the raw strength of a single component. In the world of Intel, we have seen a fascinating shift in how power is distributed through the introduction of performance cores and efficiency cores. This hybrid architecture is designed to handle the complexity of modern computing by splitting the workload between two different types of silicon. The performance cores are the heavy lifters, designed to handle the high-demand tasks like the physics and logic of your favorite games. Meanwhile, the efficiency cores are the silent laborers, handling the background noise of the operating system and minor applications. For a gamer, the number and speed of the performance cores are what truly dictate the frame rate and the smoothness of the experience. While efficiency cores are useful for keeping the system tidy, they rarely contribute directly to the high-speed calculations required for modern gaming. This architectural shift means that simply looking at the total core count of an Intel processor can be misleading if you do not know the breakdown. A processor might boast 14 cores, but if only 6 of them are performance cores, it will behave differently than a chip with 8 performance cores. This design is a response to the growing need for power efficiency in a world where energy costs and heat are becoming major concerns. By letting the smaller cores handle the mundane tasks, the larger cores can focus entirely on the game, theoretically leading to a more consistent experience. However, this also adds a layer of complexity to the software, as the operating system must be smart enough to send the right task to the right core. It is a dance of management, where the hardware and software must work in perfect synchronization to deliver the promised results. Beyond the cores and the clock speed lies a hidden kingdom known as the CPU cache, a small amount of incredibly fast memory located on the processor itself. You can think of the cache as the desk you are sitting at, while the system RAM is a bookshelf across the room. If you have to stand up and walk to the bookshelf every time you need a piece of information, your work will slow down significantly. A larger cache allows the CPU to keep more of the data it needs within arm's reach, reducing the time spent waiting for the slower system memory. This is particularly important in games with complex logic or massive open worlds, where the processor is constantly asking for new data to process the environment. CPUs with massive amounts of stacked L3 cache have recently revolutionized the gaming market, proving that memory speed is often more important than raw core count. In titles that involve heavy physics simulations or high-speed competitive play, the size of the cache can be the difference between victory and defeat. When the CPU has the data it needs instantly, the frame pacing becomes smoother, and the dreaded 1% lows are significantly improved. This is why certain processors that might seem average on paper end up dominating the gaming benchmark charts. They are not necessarily faster in terms of raw cycles, but they are smarter in how they manage their data. As games continue to grow in complexity and scope, the importance of this on-chip memory will only continue to rise. It is the secret weapon of modern architecture, a silent force that determines the fluidity of your digital world. The flow of data through your computer is a hierarchy of speed and distance. A journey from the deepest registers of the CPU to the vast reaches of your storage drive. Every step away from the processor increases the time it takes to access information, creating a series of potential bottlenecks. After the on-chip cache, the next stop is your system RAM, which serves as the primary staging area for everything the computer is currently doing. The speed of your RAM and its latency timings can have a measurable impact on how smoothly a game runs, especially in CPU-bound scenarios. Each modern platform has a specific sweet spot for memory speed, where the communication between the CPU and the RAM is most efficient. Straying too far from this sweet spot can actually lead to instability or even decreased performance, making it vital to choose your memory carefully. It is not just about the total capacity of the RAM, though 16 or 32 gigabytes has become the standard for the year 2025. The quality of the memory modules and how they interact with the processor. Integrated memory controller is what defines the stability of the system. Faster RAM can help push those frame rates a little higher, but more importantly, it ensures that the frames are delivered at a consistent pace. When the data flow is interrupted by slow memory, you experience micro-stuttering, which ruins the immersion of even the most beautiful games. Investing in a high-quality memory kit that matches the capabilities of your CPU is a small price to pay for a much smoother and more reliable experience. It is the bridge that connects the brain of your computer to the vast library of data it needs to function. Connectivity is another silent pillar of performance, dictated by the number of PCIe lanes your CPU can manage. These lanes are the highways of your motherboard, carrying data between the processor, the graphics card, and your high-speed storage drives. For a standard gaming build with a single GPU and a couple of NVMe drives, Almost any modern CPU provides more than enough bandwidth. But for the power user who wants to add capture cards, multiple high-speed SSDs, or professional networking cards, the number of lanes becomes a critical factor. If you saturate your available lanes, the system may be forced to reduce the bandwidth to your graphics card or slow down your storage. This can lead to unexpected performance drops that are difficult to diagnose if you aren't aware of the underlying limitations. The generation of PCIe supported by your CPU also matters, as each new version effectively doubles the bandwidth of the previous one. While we are currently seeing the rise of PCIe version 5, many gamers are still perfectly served by version 4 or even version 3. The key is to match your components so that no single part is held back by an outdated connection. If you buy a state-of-the-art SSD but pair it with a CPU that only supports an older generation of PCIe, you are paying for speed you will never see. It is about understanding the infrastructure of your system, ensuring that the highways are wide enough to handle the traffic you intend to send through them. A well-planned system ensures that every component can communicate at its maximum potential without interference. The foundation of your entire build is the motherboard and the CPU socket it contains, a choice that dictates your upgrade path for years to come. Some manufacturers prioritize longevity, keeping the same socket for multiple generations of processors, which allows you to upgrade your CPU without replacing the entire board. Others change sockets more frequently, forcing a total platform refresh every time you want to move to the latest and greatest technology. Choosing a long-lived platform can save you hundreds of dollars in the long run, as it provides a clear and affordable path to better performance. However, you must also be aware that older motherboards may require a BIOS update to recognize a newer processor, a process that can be intimidating for a first-time builder. The motherboard is more than just a piece of plastic and metal. It is the nervous system of your computer. Beyond the socket itself, the quality of the motherboard's power delivery system is vital for maintaining the health and performance of your CPU. A cheap motherboard might struggle to provide consistent power to a high-end processor, leading to thermal throttling or even system crashes under load. When you are choosing a board, you are not just looking for features like Wi-Fi or RGB lighting. You are looking for the quality of the components that will keep your CPU stable. A high-quality motherboard is an investment in the long-term health of your system, providing the stability needed for those long gaming sessions. It is the silent partner of the processor, ensuring that the brain of the machine has everything it needs to function at its peak. Navigating the naming structures of Intel and AMD can feel like trying to decipher an ancient language, full of codes and hidden meanings. Intel has long used the Core i3, i5, i7, and i9 tiers to help consumers understand where a processor sits in the hierarchy. More recently, they have introduced the Core Ultra branding, adding another layer of complexity to the selection process. Letters like K indicate that a processor is unlocked for overclocking, while F tells you that the chip lacks integrated graphics. Understanding these suffixes is crucial because they tell you exactly what the chip is designed for and what extra hardware you might need. A K-series chip is a waste of money if you do not have a motherboard that supports overclocking and a cooler that can handle the extra heat. On the other side of the fence, AMD uses its Ryzen 3, 5, 7, and 9 naming scheme, which mirrors the competitive landscape. Their X3D models have become legendary in the gaming community due to their massive amounts of extra cache, specifically designed to boost gaming performance. It is important to remember that a higher number doesn't always mean a better gaming experience for your specific needs. A Ryzen 7 from a newer generation will often outperform a Ryzen 9 from an older generation, thanks to those improvements in architecture and IPC. The model names are a guide, but they are not the whole story, and they should always be verified by looking at actual performance data. Being able to read these names is like having a map in a foreign land, helping you find your way to the right choice. Power consumption and cooling are the physical consequences of high-performance computing, and they are often overlooked in the excitement of a new build. Every watt of electricity consumed by your CPU is eventually turned into heat, which must be moved away from the silicon to prevent damage. High-wattage processors require beefy power delivery systems on the motherboard, and a power supply that can handle the sudden spikes in demand. This creates a ripple effect through your entire budget, as you may need to spend more on a larger case with better airflow and a more expensive cooling solution. If you ignore the thermal requirements of your CPU, you will find that it slows itself down to stay safe, a process known as throttling. You end up with a processor that is capable of greatness but is held back by its own environment. The cost of cooling a high-end CPU can sometimes rival the cost of the processor itself, especially if you opt for high-end liquid cooling. For many gamers, a more efficient, mid-range processor is a smarter choice because it runs cooler and requires less expensive supporting hardware. It is a balance between the raw power you want and the physical reality of the heat you can manage. A system that runs cool and quiet is often more pleasant to live with than a roaring beast that turns your room into a sauna. Efficiency is not just about saving money on your electric bill. It is about the longevity and the daily comfort of using your machine. When you plan your build, remember that power is nothing without the ability to control the heat it generates. While most gamers rely on a dedicated graphics card, there is a quiet value in having a CPU with integrated graphics. These small built-in GPUs are not meant for high-end gaming, but they serve as an essential safety net for troubleshooting and system setup. If your main graphics card fails, or if you are waiting for a new one to arrive, the integrated graphics allow you to keep using your computer for basic tasks. They also provide extra video encoding capabilities that can be useful for streamers or content creators who want to take some of the load off their main GPU. It is a small feature that you might never use, but in the moment you need it, it can save you hours of frustration and downtime. It is like having a spare tire in your car. You hope you never need it, but you are glad it is there when you do. The world of overclocking was once the Wild West of computing, a way for enthusiasts to squeeze every last drop of performance out of their hardware. In the past, you could see massive gains by manually increasing the clock speeds of your processor, often rivaling much more expensive models. However, in the modern era, manufacturers have become incredibly good at pushing their chips to the limit right out of the box. Modern CPUs use sophisticated boosting algorithms that automatically adjust their speed based on temperature and power headroom, leaving very little performance on the table for the user to find. Today, overclocking is more of a hobby for those who enjoy the process of fine-tuning than a practical way to gain meaningful gaming performance. For most people, the money spent on an overclocking-ready motherboard and cooler would be better spent on a higher-tier CPU or GPU from the start. Instead of chasing the dragon of overclocking, many modern builders are turning to undervolting as a way to optimize their systems. Undervolting involves reducing the voltage supplied to the CPU while maintaining the same clock speeds, which results in lower temperatures and less noise. This can actually lead to better performance in some cases, as the processor is less likely to hit its thermal limits and can maintain its boost clocks for longer. It is a more sophisticated approach to hardware management, focusing on efficiency and stability rather than raw, brute force speed. In a world where components are already pushed to their limits, the path to a better experience is often found in refinement rather than escalation. It is about working with the silicon rather than fighting against it. The choice between a stock cooler and an aftermarket solution is often a question of the environment you want to create. Many entry-level and mid-range CPUs come with a basic cooler in the box, which is perfectly adequate for keeping the chip within its safe operating temperatures. However, these stock coolers are often small and loud, struggling to maintain silence when the processor is under heavy load. Upgrading to a decent aftermarket air cooler or an all-in-one liquid cooler can drastically improve the acoustics of your build and provide more thermal headroom. A cooler CPU is a happier CPU, often able to maintain higher boost clocks for longer periods, which can lead to a more consistent gaming experience. It is also an investment in the silence of your space, allowing you to focus on the game rather than the roar of a tiny fan. For high-power processors, an aftermarket cooler is not just an option. It is a necessity for achieving the performance you paid for. These chips generate so much heat that a basic cooler would lead to immediate throttling, cutting your performance by 20 or even 30%. When you choose a cooler, you should look for one that matches the thermal design power of your CPU, with a bit of extra room for peace of mind. High-quality fans and large heatsinks can move heat away more efficiently, keeping your system stable even during the most intense gaming marathons. It is the final piece of the thermal puzzle, ensuring that your high-performance brain can think clearly without overheating. A quiet, cool system is a hallmark of a well-thought-out build. When it comes to the economics of a gaming PC, the way you allocate your budget can determine the success or failure of your project. A common mistake is to spend too much on an ultra-high-end CPU while leaving too little for the graphics card, which is the most important component for gaming. A useful guideline is to allocate roughly 25% of your total budget to the combination of the CPU, motherboard, and cooler. This ensures that you have a solid foundation without overinvesting in areas that won't provide a visible return in your frame rates. If you are building on a tight budget, it is almost always better to choose a cheaper, modern 6-core CPU and put the savings into a more powerful GPU. At the higher end of the market, the balance shifts slightly as you need a powerful CPU to keep up with the demands of top-tier graphics cards. Your target resolution also plays a major role in how you should spend your money. At 4K resolution, the graphics card is doing almost all the heavy lifting, and the difference between a mid-range and a high-end CPU becomes very small. However, if you are a competitive gamer playing at 1080p with a very high refresh rate, the CPU becomes much more important for maintaining those high frame targets. Understanding your own needs and goals is the key to making the most of every dollar you spend. There is no one-size-fits-all answer, only the answer that is right for your specific situation and your specific games. By being deliberate with your spending, you can build a machine that punches far above its weight class. In the end, choosing the right CPU is about more than just reading numbers on a screen. It is about understanding the balance of power within your machine. You must look past the marketing and the hype to find the hardware that truly aligns with your needs and your budget. Consider the longevity of the platform, the efficiency of the architecture, and the physical reality of the heat and power it will require. A well-chosen processor will serve as the reliable heart of your gaming experience for years to come, staying silent and powerful in the background while you explore new worlds. It is the wisdom of the builder that creates a great machine, not just the thickness of their wallet. By taking the time to understand these principles, you are not just buying parts. You are crafting an experience.